The Finance Bill 2023 was introduced in Parliament on Thursday, 4th May 2023, and there are some key highlights of it, which include the introduction of an export and investment promotion levy on specified imports for home use at 10% of the customs value of the goods under the third schedule, to be payable by an importer of such goods. And some of the goods which are indicated in that schedule include bar rods, iron, craft paper, sacks, and banks, as well as cement clinker. And if the bill is passed into law, this levy will be effective 1st July 2023. In addition to that, it is proposed that the pay-as-you-earn tax band on salaries above 500,000 be introduced at the rate of that 5% of income for income which is above 500,000 per month, effective 1st January 2024. There is also the most controversial introduction of a National Housing Development Fund deductions under the Employment Act, whereby each employer and employee will be required to pay 3%, in total 6% of the employee's basic salary, and this one as a cap, so that the sum total of the employer and the employee deductions would not exceed 5,000. This is the most controversial because most of the unions and workers are resisting it. And my own expert view is that it would have been a very great system of mobilization of savings for the country, because mobilization of savings is a very key factor to spur economic growth if it is discussed and agreed by the various parties, and it will also significantly reduce the amount of money the government has to borrow in order to invest in necessary infrastructure, including housing. We also have a proposal to exempt exported services from VAT, which would be welcome, although this might increase the cost of doing business for such entities, effectively making Kenya unattractive to investors in service companies. We also have a proposal to increase the turnover tax from 1% to 3%, and this one will mean eating into the cash flow of the business and the investors. We also have the other proposal of 15% withholding tax on income earned by digital content creators, which is different from the digital assets tax. Most competitors have discussed the digital assets tax, but we also have the 15% tax on income earned by digital content creators. In addition to the proposal to increase VAT rate on petroleum products from 8 to 16%, this one is also quite unpopular with most Kenyans because it's likely to increase the cost of consumer goods. It's levied on fuels, and you know fuel is an ingredient in most of the consumer items, even though there is also the other positive aspect of reducing VAT on LPG, that is gas, from 16 to 8%. We also have the withholding tax on sales, promotion, marketing, and advertising services. Those are some of the key proposals From an evaluation point of view, the government has to find a way of negotiating for the passing of the finance bill, because if it is not passed, then it means the government cannot spend and it cannot collect taxes. So it is very important that the government, through the treasury and legislators, find a way of negotiating in order to get the budget through Parliament on time, so as to enable the government collect money through taxation, which is required to finance expenditure for public services. From an economic outlook, the situation doesn't look that bad, even though for the time being, we have been told that there is a serious economic crisis. From the projections, according to the World Bank, the economy is likely to grow by 5.5% in 2023, which is a positive factor because worldwide, you are aware, even in the US, there is a serious economic funding challenge, and they have had to do a lot of trade-offs in the US by the government and the opposition to get an increase in the ceiling of the ceiling for borrowing. And invariably, governments have either to tax people, the citizens, and also businesses, or borrow, and either as consequences. If you overborrow, then you are overburdening the future generations, and there is also an extent to which you cannot borrow based on the GDP. The other option is to impose taxation, which is very unpopular with most people. And therefore, the government has to come to a middle ground and find the best way of dealing with the situation, despite the increasing levels of poverty in this country, and also the issue of corruption. So as I was saying earlier on, it is important to find a middle ground on the housing levy and negotiate it, and also put in place laws, regulations which are enforced to ensure that those funds are safeguarded if approved. And this will really be very helpful. And one of the means of getting that done is to eradicate corruption in the management of public resources. Because if this is not done, even if we increase the amount of money that we are receiving through taxation or borrowing, then we don't see the benefits. But if corruption is significantly controlled, then we should be able, as a country, to get a good mileage. There is also the important solution or strategy of creating independent anti-corruption bodies and reinforcing the ethics and anti-corruption authority or commission, so that it is effective and there should be no interference in the power of investigation and prosecution, which is vested in the DPP and the DCI. The DCI is responsible for investigation, the DPP is responsible for prosecution, and they should work very closely with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. We should also promote transparency and accountability in government by even providing information and making that information accessible to the public. For example, information on tenders, government budgets, and contracts should be published and this will provide a lot of controls on and seal a lot of loopholes that people use to engage in corruption. Educating the public about corruption through the various public forums, including the use of the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, so as to ensure that people are sensitized to report corruption incidents or suspicion of corruption, and this will be very helpful. Kenyans should be made aware of the signs of corruption, what the things that people should be able to look at, the red flags of corruption. What should you see in order to tell that there is corruption in public or private offices? And Kenyans should be encouraged to report corruption, and government should also support organizations that are working to fight corruption. So that is, in a nutshell, a fair appraisal. There is so much that is contained in this bill, but that one is a fair summary of what it contains.